Caesar displays power and control over Ashur, putting him in his place in a sense, reminding him of his position on the political food chain. Caesar's wife even orders a statue of Ashur to be removed from sight, subtly hinting at her disdain for the man, as well as reminding the audience and Ashur that he is still, at least in their eyes, a slave, just one with a bit of higher status. Later, we see Ashur and Caesar again exchanging words as Caesar makes sexual gestures towards Halara, while his wife takes Messia. Ashur protests and Caesar slaps the hell out of him, kicks him while he's down, and then basically proceeds to inform him that when you greet me, you don't greet me as an equal. You greet me basically as a god. And then he ends up taking Halara, which is the equivalent to Ashur's girlfriend. That's pretty much not the only woman, but that's the only woman he has access to at the time, unless things work out with Gabinius' daughter. Caesar just takes her right there. Him and his wife take Messia and Halara, and Ashur pretty much watches, kind of like when you were a kid and you watched your sibling eat your favorite lollipop or eat your candy, your bag of chips. That same little look that you have, like that look of just sadness and helplessness and despair. And I don't want to go too far into that scene, man, because it was it was insane, bro. My jaw was on the floor. That was crazy. That was fucking crazy. And I'm loving the fact that they're actually giving Ashur what he deserves in this season. And like I say, I like Ashur. I root for Ashur. But that doesn't mean that I don't realize the man deserves to get his comeuppance from time to time. We also get a scene where Caesar is basically in Ashur's office, sort of say, in his main quarters. And Caesar is resting in his seat with his feet kicked up. He's just getting comfortable, you know. What's yours is mine. And he basically informs Ashur and the audience that, yeah, those Cilicians, those are our men. And yes, we ordered them to attack. Yes, that was all orchestrated by Crassus, which is, it's genius. Crassus orchestrated Ashur to be there picking up whatever he was picking up. He was picking up that luggage when he met that guy underneath that building, the arena, or whatever. They were underneath some sort of building. And the man was asking him, you know, like, well, Crassus said that I will get paid here. And Ashur threatened him. That was what Crassus had Ashur there to do in order to ensure that he was there at the same time the attack occurred. And it was Opater's job, it was his duty to ensure that Kasucha was there. And the way that he did this was with, he inquired about her desiring more fine fabrics, just more fine materials to wear. She's tired of wearing the same old stuff. And that was his way of luring her to the market area. And this was done in order to gain favor with Gabinius. You know, we just order. I don't know if those Cilician powers were actually Cilicians or if they were Romans dressed as Cilicians, but that was Crassus's entire plan, and it's genius in my opinion. And that is where we are made aware of that by Caesar right here, where he's kind of grilling Ashur. But yeah, I'm really liking the guy who's playing Caesar. He has a very suave menace about him. When I first saw him in the teaser trailer kind of mogging, I was a little bit nervous. I was very nervous. Like, I was shaking in my boots thinking that we were going to get some terrible performance. But this young man is very skilled. And like I say, he brings more of a suave menace to the role. So then, guys, we're taken to, basically, we're still in the Ludus, but they're having this sort of celebration before the Ludi Apollinaris. You know how they used to do it in previous seasons. They usually party before these big gladiatorial events. And we see Ashur, and he's kept that same grim look on his face, but we kind of see him straighten up when he has to engage with the elites. We see Viridia arrive, and as soon as Viridia arrives, Crassus and Ashur are pretty much side by side. And Crassus, or no, not Crassus. forgive me, Caesar. Caesar and Ashur are pretty much right by side, and Caesar goes to greet Viridia, and he kisses her hand, and you can see Ashur kind of look at him like, I can't have shit. I can't have nothing with this motherfucker around. I gotta get this man out of here. I gotta conclude this business, and this man has to go. It's like when your fucking big brother come back home from college and, he start eating up all the fruit snacks and shit and all the food gone. It's like, God damn, man, take your ass back to college so I can have a home back to myself. Literally, Caesar is in here big brothering Ashur, like just moving his weight around. Don't shit matter to him. He doesn't care about Ashur's position. He does not respect him. And we also see Viridia actually inquiring as to how Ashur got the bruise on his face, how he came to be so roughly handled. She also says this partially because she had seen him. She knows how he can fight. She's seen him fight those pirates in the last episode. And he kind of, brushes it off, saying that he had fell or something along the lines of that. And you can see Caesar looking over at him like, I wish you would. Even if he did, like, it's going to make Ashur look even less than. He can't admit, oh, this motherfucker just bitch slapped me not too long ago. He can't say that. So he just brushes it off pretty much, but it's kind of, the energy's there. Like, Caesar suddenly arrived and now you're bruised up. And then on top of that, when it's time for Ashur to announce the Ludi Apollinaris and basically host his party in his ludus, because this is supposed to be his night, Caesar jumps up and he takes the honor, and he even calls it the House of Caesar. That's all the evidence that we need to know that in the eyes of Caesar, in the eyes of the elites, in the eyes of everyone above Ashur, he is still property. Ashur is property, and what is yours is ours. That is how they feel about him, and that is what it is. And it also puts into perspective what Ashur said earlier in the season, how without money, a man will always be a slave. And it's true. Look at it. Look at it here. If he had more money, maybe he could get himself from underneath this situation, but he doesn't. He can't. He has no real name for himself. He has a home. He has the ludus. He has a title of lanista. He has a doctorate. He has gladiators, not very good gladiators. He doesn't really have any real cards in his deck yet. Achilles is still a work in progress. Things could still go terribly wrong with that. And Viridia actually says he sees his laurels rightfully yours, as Caesar basically takes Ashur's little glory moment here. And we get one of probably the saddest we have seen Ashur. I've never seen Ashur look so defeated. I've never seen him look so defeated, even when Crixus snapped his leg like a twig and got out of the arena. Never seen this guy look so down and out. I mean, even before Navia took his head off, I don't even think he looked this goddamn upset. As Caesar's basically giving his little speech and whatnot for the Ludi Apollinaris, he calls for Ashur to come forward and call forth his champion. And out comes Achilles. And predictably, it is a very, it's a very predictable response, because you have to understand that having men fight in the arena, that's tradition for them. It's tradition. People take tradition fairly seriously in most cultures, even in modern society. Predictable response. And Gabinius is pissed, and he and Ashur basically go off to have a little private conversation, and Gabinius is grilling him for bringing Achilles into this, because he's like, you lost Logus, and now you're bringing in her? What the hell are you doing? First of all, you're pissing people off, and this doesn't, to me, look like it's going to improve your chances in the arena, in the games. Basically, Ashur's defending himself, and he also suggests that Gabinius leverage his influence by publicly aligning with Crassus. Right when Gabinius is about to walk out, Ashur stops him, and they basically start going back and forth about Pompey. And the goal was to force Pompey to take notice and improve both Ashur's and Gabinius' standing in Roman political circles. Kind of like a symbolic gesture, and Gabinius agrees to let Caesar, who was working for Crassus, participate in the Ludi Apollinaris, because Caesar is, of course, framing this as, his moment. And it's basically now he is requesting this. And Gabinius does not like Caesar. He actually despises Caesar. And Caesar is also aligned with Crassus. Gabinius is aligned with Pompey. So he does not want to give him the right to participate in the games. But Ashur is pleading, please, because this is also tied to Ashur. He's pleading, please. Gabinius does allow Caesar and Ashur to participate in the Ludi Apollinaris, the games Gabinius is sponsoring. So ultimately, Ashur was trying to secure his own position and advance in his new house by navigating this little rivalry among the Roman elites between Pompey and Crassus in particular. So the party continues, and we are then taken to Opater and Chorus, who are sharing a moment. And again, Opater is basically prying him, trying desperately to get Chorus to forget about this life and forget about the arena, forget about all this, just be with me, basically. Opater does really seem to love him, but the thing that's making me nervous about this situation is the fact that Opater he's very reckless, actually, and the actions that he's taking could get him and Chorus in some trouble, some deep waters. And we see this because Proculus is watching this reckless behavior at the parties, and it's too much, especially when you guys have all of this at stake, and the people who you guys are involved with. It's just too much to be making these kinds of moves, especially in public. So now Proculus has some very valuable information. He knows that Opater has basically other allegiances and whatnot. Ashur then approaches Proculus and basically accuses him of having his man Phides set upon Ashur's man, Chorus. Ashur still believes this. He is not aware that Casucha was behind that. And Proculus says to him, if I were to make a move on you, my hand will grasp the sword. And they have this very intense standoff. Ashur says, I long for the day. And Ashur's been having a very bad day, so he couldn't wait to get this off of his chest. That's why he approached Proculus. He couldn't wait to just get something off of his chest. He had to put someone down because he's had enough today. Also, just very briefly, guys, later we also get Tarchon and his father both engaging in behavior that personally I believe is not going to go well. We have Tarchon pulling aside one of the pleasure girls who he has taken a liking to, and they clearly have history. He even took her from a Roman who was apparently somewhat wealthy. This behavior is only going to end up biting him in the ass. It has to, eventually. And Calidus actually lays down with Achillia because she is there waiting for him at his quarters, and they have an intimate scene because in her mind, due to the reaction of the crowd, she believes that she will be killed. She's starting to have doubts because everyone else seems to have doubts, and I guess it's starting to seep into her mind. And they have an intimate moment, and I can't help but think that father and son, they're both engaging in behavior that's going to end in dangerous ways. We heard it from Crixus, love makes a man weak before battle. So what is going to be the result of this? I feel like Tarchon or Calidus, someone's going to die. I just don't know which one. At the Ludi Apollinaris, the House of Ashur fields fighters early on. We got Tarchon and his father, Calidus. They are paired against gladiators from a rival house, and they fight together in a team bout. Even though Tarchon's recklessness almost cost him, or almost cost them both, they end up winning and surviving and ultimately slaying their opponents, advancing Ashur's position in the games. Achillia versus Ammonius. This is the biggest moment because this is the little switch. This is the switcheroo. Instead of having Achillia face the Ferox brothers, Proculus switches it at last minute to Ammonius, a much larger, much more ferocious gladiator. And the Ferox brothers contest this, saying that he's stealing their glory. And Ammonius, he says, you don't deserve any. Basically cementing and backing up what I said earlier, how these guys aren't really respected. They're just for matches, they aren't really respected as gladiators. They might be feared to some, but they don't really get any true respect. The fight is brutal and one-sided at first, with Ammonius overpowering Achilles and quite literally throwing her around like a rag doll. I'm not sure how much I can show of that, to be honest. Eventually, Achilles has to use her speed, agility, and her grit to stay alive. Just when it looks like she was about to be killed by the larger opponent, she seizes an opening and victoriously kills Ammonius, delivering a stabbing blow below the belt that ends the fight. However, her victory came at a cost, and she ends up suffering severe injuries and blood loss. And the episode ends with her on the brink and uncertain that she will survive. Basically, she passes out, and I can assume that next episode we're going to be somewhere with her kind of drifting in and out of consciousness, kind of similar to Spartacus when he suffered that wound from Varro. And we had an episode of him kind of drifting in and out, trying to find answers. And I do believe that's where we're going to get more about her backstory. All right, you guys. So moving on to episode 6, Empty Things. This episode was extremely dope. Achilles' condition and the Medicus. Achilles is brought back from the Ludus in very bad shape. She's delirious from blood loss. Her hand is mangled. In a brutal moment, Ashur actually throws his Medicus off a cliff because the Medicus insists that her injured hand has to be amputated. And Ashur asks him, like, are you insisting on crippling my champion? And the Medicus says, well, if you have someone better, find them, bring them here. And Ashur tosses him off of the cliff. This showcases Ashur's desperation and his refusal to concede defeat, even if it means brutal choices and killing off people who he actually needs. Opater and Chorus, medical search. Ashur ends up sending Chorus to Opater to find another Medicus to treat Achilles. It is here that Opater reveals his plans to leave Capua and admits his involvement in past schemes involving Caesar, like arranging those attacks and basically getting Kasucha to be at the market, luring her there with the fabrics and whatnot. Opater offers Chorus to flee, but Chorus refuses to join, afraid of Ashur's retribution, and rightfully so. Opater then offers Ashur his Ludus villa and gladiators in exchange for allowing Chorus a peaceful departure, which in my mind, this seals the whole deal, and it is no longer a doubt that Opater does love Chorus, and Chorus loves Opater. Like I said, we didn't really get to see their past, but we know that they have a past. We haven't really gotten anything about it, but we know that they got history together. And it's got to be strong history, clearly. So Cornelia interferes. Back at the villa, Cornelia continues to torment Ashur, and she's flexing power on him. She's sleeping with his slaves. She's inviting Kasucha and Viridia over uninvited, and she humiliates him socially by having him basically remove his garments. He had to disrobe, and she insults his manhood in front of his servants and his gladiators. When Chorus proposes a tournament to choose an interim champion, Cornelia steals gladiators for her own purposes. This was her little purpose. This was her little reasoning to take them away. She's just here to annoy Ashur. It seems like she takes such pride and joy in just annoying this man and pissing him off. So Chorus proposes a tournament to choose the intern champion, and Cornelia, she's throwing wrenches in the gears by pulling gladiators out. Cornelia's meddling isn't chaos. She has political motives that threaten Ashur's stability, because at the end of the day, she is Caesar's wife, and she's trying to do what will get Caesar in proper position. She does not give a damn about Ashur. Ashur eventually agrees to Opater's offer, planning to take Opater's house, gladiators, and resources. This is insane to me. Ashur boasts about this deal, which leads him to trouble. You see, he boasts to Proculus when Proculus approaches him in the streets, basically saying, hey man, we can set up almost like some WWE type stuff. We can set up some almost rigged matches. You can set Achilles to face some of my lesser men, and she can get her fame and she can steadily grow, and I can stay in the game. Ashur basically, throws dirt on this whole little agreement because he's got Opater now, and Opater desperately wants something from Ashur, which is Chorus. And Ashur made a terrible mistake here telling Proclus this, and we're going to find out why. So Calidus wins the Gladiator tournament. Of course, this was fairly obvious. I was confused on why we were even doing the tournament. I thought it was pretty obvious that Calidus would be the option. But Ashur ends up choosing Tarkhan as champion instead. Why? Because he has now made up his mind that, all right, I'll take Opater's deal. Of course, you can go, but I need a Doctori. That's going to be Calidus. This allows Calidus to become the new Doctori because, like I say, Chorus is leaving under the Opater deal. Ashur asks Chorus to stay briefly to pray for Achilea, and they perform a sort of ritual that Ashur must have experience from, either dealing with the Romans or perhaps from his past. We know, we've seen them do various rituals in the past seasons. This is a big deal considering Ashur's non-belief for the gods, showing how desperate he really is for her to survive. Achilea wakes up. The prayer or ritual, it ends up working, and Achilea awakens from her delirium and her visions. This gives her survival and sets up her to continue fighting later. And we got some really awesome visions with her, and we're not sure if it's her daughter or maybe a little sister, but unfortunately it seems as if maybe some very unsavory people in their homeland were trying to take them, harm them, enslave them, do whatever they were trying to do to them. And Achilea tried to fight back, ultimately striking down one of the captors, but also she ran through her very own daughter or sister in the attempt to save her. So we kind of see what has been holding her back in terms of the violence, I suppose. Opater's fate. This scene was actually quite unsettling. I'm not even going to lie to you. I do not like the Ferox brothers. They're little freaking twerps to me, but when we go to Opater and we see that his ludus is in shambles and his men have been killed, and then we get these little goblins running around in the dark like Five Nights at Freddy's. At first it was a little funny, but I'm not going to lie, like the shit was actually kind of unsettling. So by the end of the episode, Opater is murdered by the brothers Ferox. And that means that Ashur's big deal is in jeopardy, I'm assuming, because Proclus wouldn't simply allow him to take those men. He could have killed them all, for all we know. I mean, that's what it looked like. There was no one there to defend Opater. The guards were dead. I mean, I don't know where this is going to put that deal. I don't know where this is going to put Ashur in terms of all of that. I have zero idea. I'm assuming that Proclus would more than likely try to make a move on those resources. That's the most likely thing. Or unless he tries to frame this as Ashur's doing in some way, shape, or form. I genuinely don't know. But that was episode 6, guys. Overall, my favorite episode. And that is the review, guys. This review took a minute because there's just so much to talk about. And the episodes are getting way better, bro. It's really picking up, and I'm enjoying it. I give this episode 9 out of 10.